Hey everyone, it's your favorite one-on-one teaching assistant. And today I want to talk about something which I've referenced in my previous videos. It's really kind of the only work experience I technically have, like, because the whole welfare system is messed up. Let's just leave it at that. I've mentioned that before too, but I've also mentioned it briefly in other videos, but basically from March of 2017 to June of 2018, I worked with disabled kids in a special education classroom as um like a one-on-one aide, and I also did interpreting for um other students from Spanish to English because um at the time we were getting in a lot of newly arrived migrants, some of them with intellectual disabilities, others not, but we were the only um school at the time in my district, the only high school with an ESL program. So that was why. And if you don't know, ESL stands for English as a Second Language. So, all of this happened in the middle of the year. All of the classes were already filled. They couldn't get any spots for them, so they put them in the special education classes, which um obviously is not the best solution at all, of course, but before around about this point, the population of my city was not that diverse, so they didn't really have any reason to put ESL programs anywhere else. Now my school actually was. Um I was part of the 60% of us or so that were minorities in the school. Around half of that 60% were Latinos like myself. Um yeah, and it was one of the best experiences of my life, and I got into it basically because I was a bad student, guys. I was lazy. I didn't do my work. I was going through a lot, guys. Like, I was extremely depressed. I didn't like myself very much, and like, I was a loner. I was a shut in, and I over the years, as I've come to really examine that era of my life almost a decade ago now, um I've come to have compassion for myself, yes, but to also recognize that I hurt a lot of people in the process. I almost sabotaged my entire life, the few avenues available to me for advancement as a physically disabled person. Now, I was able to recover it, but I still shouldn't have done what I did and hurt the people that I did. Again, yes, I was a teenager, but a lot of other teenagers in similar positions to me don't do what I did, and I heavily regret it, and I spend every single day of my life since that time working to repair it. But basically, yeah, I had just gotten my United States residency too, and I was therefore now eligible for a lot of state programs because, contrary to what xenophobes will will um tell you, people that are here on visas and are here in other ways, or may not have documentation, can't actually get benefits. What they're speaking of when they say that or referring to are is those people that come here in that way and then have a kid here, and then, like, by virtue of them, get those benefits. But that didn't apply to me and my family. And by the way, I'm not judging those people because I am a fellow migrant like them. But I'm just saying that, like, gringos don't understand their own immigration system because they've never, ever, or rarely had to deal with it. Um, so, yeah, I was doing bad. I was taking classes at the or thinking about taking classes at the local community college, but because I was, you know, disabled and stuff like that in the US, because of this thing called IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, um disabled people are allowed to stay in high school till they're 21. I was 18 and getting ready to graduate, and I still remember. Now, I was in mainstream classes, guys, but I still remember the day I was in my Latin class. I took 4 years of Latin in school. It was at just after being pulled out of AP Chem and other AP classes. I think AP Physics as well, just because I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't putting in the actual effort needed to do good at those classes because I was a lazy B word. Uh, and they pulled me aside and they're like, "We've been talking." It was my IEP case manager, which is just like the person they assign to you to take care of all your accommodations as a disabled person. Um, and then the special education teacher, who again, I was not in his class, but we were friends at that time, and he liked me as a person and always had a vested interest in my success, which I'm very lucky. Steven, I know you're probably watching this. Hi, I love you. Thank you for everything you've done for me. And they were like, "Yeah, we've been talking and we think we need to hold you back a year and that you should um like join my class as an intern officially." Because before this point, guys, all I was doing essentially was that. So the special education program at my school was a special one. It wasn't just regular special education where they basically teach special ed kids the basics of, like, literacy and stuff like that. It was something called Learning for Life, which focused on what we in the business call ADLs, activities of daily living. Um so, like, for example, they would teach the kids how to cook, how to do laundry, how to properly be hygienic. Um, because the thing is, I think especially intellectual disability, like, um, the able-bodied population doesn't really have any good reference for intellectually disabled people, and the fact that, like, they can be pretty integrated functioning members of society, right? They think of only the worst cases, and that kind of really um I guess poisons the well in terms of discourse, or poisons the discourse itself around their issues. But yeah, intellectual disability is such a broad spectrum. Then the worst cases, nonverbal, and even nonverbal, right? Nonverbal doesn't mean unintelligent or dumb, but everyone with an intellectual disability is different. And so, depending on what that specific set of kids for that year needed, they would teach them stuff like that. But they also they also um had their own business, like the special education class itself ran its own business, and they would go out in the community and do stuff for people in the community, like landscaping and movings and um stuff like that, at reduced rates, subsidized by the school. And this would teach the kids to work, and they would get paid from the profits and the accounts of this business within their special education class. Um so they would be taught to work as well and hold down a job. Now, uh a lot of disabled people, unfortunately, because of exceptions carved out um by the government and big businesses, unfortunately, are paid sub minimum wage. But even so, with a population that's you know um so oftentimes makes literally no money, ask me how I know. um uh I think it's overall good. Like, it really does teach them how to interact with people in a work environment and like do stuff. And I'm glad it exists despite the overarching systemic uh problems which it faces. Uh so anyway, I was a part of this program. We used my DACA authorization to make me be a part of it for part of my day. And what I would do is that I would count the change and stuff from the school store in my school lunchroom. We had like a little annex with like a microwave and stuff so that kids could heat up their lunches they brought from home, and teachers and stuff like that could do the same. And like, we sold gummies, we sold snacks, Doritos, and like, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but I was basically the only one there that didn't have a cognitive impairment and could count change and coins at the level that was fast enough for every transactions. Now, the other kids were like the cashiers and stuff, but I would count the change to make sure people were getting back their change and then not being cheated as well. um And I also occasionally helped out in the special education classroom itself, like helping kids with their assignments and stuff like that. So I was already doing that, but that was kind of like an hey, like kind of unofficial, like you're still going to classes and stuff. It wasn't until the following year, where I got into this internship program and it counted as a class and I was officially like an employee of the business as an intern because my school um allowed us to do that. Now, what that allowed me to do was be in special education without technically being in special education, and I was able to take a good portion of my day to once again be an interpreter, help the kids without having to worry about other classes, which I had already done technically because I was supposed to graduate the year before. So I just took one class at the school while technically being enrolled there. While applying for like Medicaid and stuff like that, and sorting out my residency and whatnot, and going to the local community college by myself using the bus. I took a linear algebra course, which I failed because linear algebra is crazy hard. I had already taken calculus 3, so I thought I could do it, but oh boy. But I also give myself compassion for that too because I also didn't know how to study then. Um uh so yeah, and I just worked with these kids for the entire year basically as an intern, and guys, what can I say? It changed my life. It even though I didn't really uh start loving myself until 2.5, 3 years ago, it still made me realize that I wanted to help the community that I was a part of, and I wanted to be with them after so many years of running away from myself, my disabled self in a sense. That was like the first inkling of like, okay, like wow, we're a people, I'm part of a community. And the way I touched these kids' lives, just it affects me even to this day, man. Particularly, there was one student I worked with that was also in a wheelchair, and Latino. Not something you see very often. To be honest, his name was Luis. Um, where this guy, he was also intellectually disabled, which with people with my condition, it's actually pretty common. All I have is like a processing delay, and like obviously my speech is kind of slurred and my eyes are kind of crooked and the spasticity. But like this man, he loved me so much. Like he would freak out whenever he saw me or knew that I was coming. Like he would literally start hyperventilating because he was so excited to see me. And it's like I know representation probably isn't the most important thing, but like, I think it was the fact that like he had a ton of respect for me and that he saw me as like I was someone he looked up to. Um and I I like words can't describe how that made me feel and how much I also, loved him a lot. And I even still I have pictures from my last day with him uh because he begged for us to take a picture together, and of course I said yes, and I still have it, and I still look at it and smile very fondly when I look back on it. um I mean, same thing for my interpreting that I did during that time. Because there was this girl named Yesenia from El Salvador that um even to this day she still remembers how I translated for them. They were in a cooking class with the mother of one of my very good friends who had graduated the year prior. And like I was at a disability month event back in July, right? The like, well, I don't know if any other local governments do this, but where I live, they always have like an event with ARC, which is an organization that advocates on behalf of disabled people and does events for them and stuff like that in the local government. And then they'll do like a proclamation and have dancing and ice cream and stuff like that. I went to that um event on behalf of the DSA, and I meet one of the ladies from the ARC that I've known for a long time that had helped me and my family previously. And we started talking, and she's like, "You know who always asks about you?" And because apparently, and I didn't know this because it didn't seem to me like she was intellectually disabled at all, but she was Yesenia. Yesenia would come into ARC events and talk to this other lady that I knew. Um, and she would be like, "Hey, do you remember Gabe? What's up with him? Like, he was so sweet and cute, and I still remember how he helped us." And I was like, "Of course I remember her." And she was like, "Can I take a picture with you to show her?" And I'm like, "Of course, man." And it's just like, again, that filled my heart with so much joy, man. With like, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It even makes me want to cry, bro. Um uh and I've also gotten letters from previous students. They wrote me letters saying how much they enjoyed me helping them and having them in the class, and that they hoped I would do good. There was this one Punjabi Indian special ed kid named Lach. Uh and he wrote me a letter and he gave it to me one day when I was visiting uh the high school during when I was in college. And I still have that letter. It's hanging up somewhere or in storage somewhere, but I still have it. I never throw those things away. Um and yeah, guys, again, it's just um I really can't understate the impact of having um a disabled person or someone who was in special education, because I'll talk about that in another video, but I started out in special education. Um um but like kids actually do notice that, and they are cognizant enough, even intellectually disabled kids. Again, I I think that intellectually disabled people are extremely misunderstood, and only their worst cases are ever talked about. Um like a lot of other stigmatized conditions, BPD. Um uh but representation does matter, and I saw it firsthand from their reactions and memories of me, and I'm just so privileged to have been able to be a part of that. And if I wasn't also under the same ableist system, um I would like to eventually pursue that. Of course, there are bigger things that need to get dealt with, like the Medicare for all and like actual um good welfare reform that allows people to not have the rug pulled from under them while they're accumulating wealth. Disabled people. Um but I've always imagined myself um doing some sort of advocacy or teaching, and I'm currently trying to pursue that locally. Nothing that has been paid yet, but I'm very, very hopeful. And these experiences also taught me discipline and hard work and how to value my community, myself, and my people. And for that, I can never repay the teachers and administrators who held me back a year, because I wouldn't be the person I am today without them and without that. And it makes all of the pain and suffering of my teenage years totally worth it. Um I would period not be the same person I am today without that internship, without me working in that special education classroom. Uh and if you ever get the chance, it takes a lot of patience and understanding, but I think you should try it too if you're able, and especially if you're disabled. Alright, see you guys. Bye.